kids of the poorest households or most at risk to poverty in the area. The status frustration would not necessarily stem directly from their poverty. Instead, applying Cohen's propositions, the likely culprit of their frustration would fall along various lines. First, forcing poor farm kids into the classroom weakens their short-term ability to assist in earning much-needed household income. Second, even more so than in Cohen's day, the standardized curriculum is geared to teach more toward middle-class values and expectations of both skills and success. Under these conditions, the most poor and disenfranchised members of society understandably perceive themselves as the opposite of what society views as wanted, needed, or successful. It serves as a pressure cooker and hostile grounds for negative reaction formations against the perceived enemies. Nevertheless, Cohen's theory is basically the same as Merton's. Both assume that lower-class people are more likely than others to engage in deviant activities because society fails to help them fulfill the aspirations for success or status that it has induced in them. Cloward and O'Lean, differential illegitimate opportunity. You may recall the way Merton formulates his theory. The lower classes tend to engage in deviance because they, like the middle and upper classes, have been encouraged to hold high success goals but, unlike the higher classes, are denied the legitimate means or opportunity of achieving the success goals.
Free will.
Cloward and O'Lean, 1960, accept this general idea. At the same time, however, they want to extend it by introducing the concept of differential illegitimate opportunity. First, Cloward and O'Lean point out that Merton correctly directs our attention to the problem of differential legitimate opportunity, that the lower classes have less opportunity than other classes for achieving success in a legitimate, conforming manner. But Merton wrongly assumes that the lower classes, when confronted with the lack of opportunity, would automatically and successfully engage in deviant activities. In other words, Merton fails to recognize the fact that the lower classes, after being confronted with the problem of differential legitimate opportunity, are further confronted with the additional problem of differential illegitimate opportunity. The fact is that some members of the lower classes have less opportunity than others of the same classes for achieving success in an illegitimate, deviant manner. What Cloward and O'Lean want to emphasize is that while all lower-class people suffer from the same lack of opportunity for engaging in legitimate and conforming activities, they do not have the same opportunity for participating in illegitimate and deviant activities. Thus, when some lower-class persons are pressured toward committing a deviant act, such as theft or robbery, there is no guarantee that they will actually do it. Whether or not they will actually do it depends on whether they have access to illegitimate opportunity in the lower-class neighborhood. There are three types of illegitimate opportunity, each provided by a deviant subculture. The criminal subculture offers illegitimate opportunities for achieving success goals. If lower-class youngsters are integrated into this subculture, they are able to achieve success by stealing, robbing, and fencing. This is the kind of deviant activity to which Merton assumes all lower-class youngsters will turn when they are denied conventional opportunities in the larger society. But, according to Cloward and O'Lean, many of these lower-class youths are not part of the criminal subculture and therefore do not enjoy criminal opportunities. For example, they may need to join a gang, or be an apprentice to an older burglar or armed robber, to learn the trade and be introduced into a world where stolen property can be easily exchanged for money. Yet some of those youths may find themselves in another neighborhood where the conflict subculture flourishes. In this subculture, usually one without a settled criminal class, a youngster has the opportunity to achieve rep or status within a violent delinquent gang. But that opportunity is available only to those youngsters who can meet such requirements as possessing fighting skill and demonstrating enthusiasm for risking injury in gang warfare. Some lower-class adolescents fail to meet these requirements and are therefore denied the opportunity for achieving status within the conflict subculture. There is, finally, a third, retreatist subculture, in which the only requirement for membership is the willingness to enjoy the use of drugs. Persons who are recruited into the retreatist subculture are likely to be those who have failed to achieve success in the criminal subculture or to attain status in the conflict subculture. Because of their failure to achieve success or status in both the delinquent underworld and the conventional world, the retreatists have been called double failures. In brief, Cloward and O'Lean extend Merton's enemy strain theory by introducing differential illegitimate opportunity as the third, intervening variable, through which the goal, means gap leads to three different kinds of deviant activities. Goal, means gap differential illegitimate opportunity, different deviant activities. Table 2.2 shows how this version of enemy strain theory by Cloward and Oline compares with the versions by Merton and Cohen. Nevertheless, Cloward and Oline basically agree with Merton that lower-class people are more inclined than others toward deviance, because they are more likely to experience the discrepancy between success aspirations and the opportunity for realizing those aspirations. Table 2.2. Three versions of enemy strain theory. Merton, goal, means gap, deviance. Cohen, goal, means gap, status frustration, deviance. Cloward and Oline, goal, means gap, differential illegitimate opportunity, different deviant activities. Note, the sign indicates antecedes or causes, as in A antecedes or causes B. Recent developments. Over the last 20 years, a number of sociologists have moved enemy strain theory in new directions. Stephen Messner and Richard Rosenfeld, 2012, for example, argue that Merton focused too much on the inequality in access to the legitimate means for success as the source of the strain that leads to deviance. It is not so much the relative lack of opportunity that causes people to resort to the illegal means of achieving success, Messner and Rosenfeld contend, rather it is the overwhelming culture of the American dream that causes deviance by encouraging people to adopt an anything-goes mentality in the pursuit of success. According to Mark Conti, 2005, the pursuit of the American dream or economic success can cause deviance because it reflects a strong self-interest with little or no social interest. Self-interests focus on personal success or dominance over others, while social interests emphasize concern for the welfare of others. Research has suggested that people tend to engage in deviance if they have strong self-interests while lacking social interests. Robert Agnew, 1992, has also found Merton inadequate for focusing only on failure to achieve economic success goals as the strain that directly causes deviance. There are two other kinds of strain that are non-economic in nature, Agnew theorizes. One is what he calls the removal of positively valued stimuli, such as the loss of a boyfriend/girlfriend, the death or serious illness of a friend, moving to a new school district, the divorce/separation of one's parents, and suspension from school. The other form of strain involves the presentation of negative stimuli, which includes such unpleasant experiences as child abuse and neglect, criminal victimization, physical punishment, and problems with parents or peers. These strains are said to cause frustration, fear, and anger, which in turn lead to deviant actions such as theft, aggression, and drug use. Certain factors, however, may strengthen the influence of strain on deviance. When experiencing strain, for example, men tend to commit a greater amount of violent crime than do women, and college students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, are more likely than other students to get involved in crime. Aaron, 2007, Johnson and Kircher, 2007. Evaluating enemy strain theory. This theory has at least two problems. First, there is no reliable evidence to support its claim that people of the lower classes are more likely than those of other classes to engage in deviant activities. It is true that the official statistics on crime and delinquency, which enemy strain theorists rely on, do support the theory. But the official statistics can be considered unreliable and invalid. They are unreliable because law enforcers devote almost all of their attention to attempting to control lower-class criminals and delinquents, leaving little time for higher-class ones. As we will see later in the book, for example, despite similar rates of using drugs, and using the same drugs, most of the people arrested and imprisoned for drug crimes are lower-class African Americans. Thus, official statistics are invalid because they do not reflect the total picture of deviance, they measure instead a portion of the totality of deviance. Certain street crimes such as robbery, burglary, and assault are considered the most serious crimes and therefore worthy of being counted, even if they are not the most harmful or economically lucrative crimes. If we modify the theory and say that lower-class people are more likely to commit the street crimes that society considers serious types of deviance, then the theory does have adequate empirical support from both the official and unofficial reports on criminality and delinquency. Second, there is no evidence to support the assumption of enemy strain theory that lower-class people tend to hold the same level of success aspirations as do upper and middle-class people. On the contrary, both theoretical analysis and empirical data show that lower-class people hold a significantly lower level of success aspirations. It is true, as enemy strain theorists claim, that U.S. society encourages lower-class people to embrace high-success goals. But it is not necessarily true, as anime strain theorists assume that lower-class people will end up embracing high-success goals. After all, generations of experience will point out to most people that those who get low grades in poor schools and have no access to employment only rarely manage to climb up the social ladder, no matter what their aspirations or intelligence. Merton and other anime strain theorists appear to have ignored the fact that while the manifest, intended function of U.S. success ideology is to get all social classes to entertain high aspirations, the blatant, unintended, and real consequence turns out to be the higher social classes holding far higher aspirations than the lower classes. Whatever its shortcomings, anime strain theory does have important, redeeming value, aside from its being considered, by many sociologists, as highly interesting. Foremost to consider is that the theory has contributed greatly to the sociological idea that the society, not the individual, causes deviant behavior. Before the theory was first published in 1938, many sociologists tended to seek the causes of deviance within the individual rather than without. The fact that today many sociologists take for granted the notion of deviance as caused by society is a testament to the contribution of anime strain theory. Further, the theory seems to have a valid premise: the discrepancy between aspirations and the opportunity to realize these aspirations produces pressures toward deviation. This premise suggests that anybody, regardless of their social class backgrounds, tends to engage in deviance if they experience a significant gap between aspiration and opportunity. Indeed, much research has shown that wherever the aspiration-opportunity gap strikes, it tends to generate deviation. Menard, 1995, Parnaby and Sacco, 2004, Passos and Agnew, 1997. Social learning theory. According to social learning theory, the brainchild of Edwin Sutherland, 1939, deviant behavior is learned through one's interaction with others. More specifically, Sutherland developed the theory of differential association to explain how the learning of deviance comes about.